Welcome to Jewish Women Talk About Midlife. Hi, I'm Devora Krasnianski, and I've been coaching women for a long time in all areas of life, and more recently in midlife. Midlife is an exciting time, but it's also sometimes confusing, and so I invite experts to come here to my podcast to talk about different aspects of midlife. You can join in our conversation on our Facebook group, Jewish Women Talk About Midlife. And in this episode, I spoke with Yehudis Wolvovsky, a Chabad shlucha, and the mother of her own large brood. We spoke about parenting our teens these days, the challenges and some mindsets that we parents can have to raise healthy children who become healthy adults. So I'm really grateful to you, Yehudis Wolvovsky, for this important topic of raising our teens. It's different from when our oldest kids were teens or from when we were raising them as younger children. And as I speak to lots of women about different things that are going on in their lives, a lot of them are talking about raising our teens. It's so different. The teens today are different. I think about it differently, and I just don't have the energy that I used to. So I'm really excited to talk about this topic of teens. I want to put a disclaimer. We're not talking about the toughest situations with teens. We're talking about raising teens. Is that right?
Yeah. I think as we raise our children, we come into all situations and we want to be as prepared as possible. So let's see what we come up with.
All right. So talk a little bit about what you do and your context on this topic.
So I think the most important thing I do is I'm a mother, of 11 children. So I guess my first half is already in their teen years or beyond. My oldest is 21, but my youngest is 3. So I parent my own children. I've also taught many years in Hebrew school and high school. And so I think I've been exposed to children of every age at this point.
Okay, wonderful. So let's just jump right into it. Let's just putting back the frame of what is our mission as parents, and the other is sort of what is not in our purview that we have to be doing.
So I think that when we start out as parents, I think we have this mindset that we're going to be these perfect parents and we're going to do everything right and we're going to raise these perfect children. However, it doesn't always work exactly as planned, and we realize that things that we thought were in our control are not really in our control. And so instead of thinking that, A plus B equals C, we have to kind of change the equation a lot. And the way I started shifting my mindset is to recognize is that, firstly, they're my children as in they were given to me, but I don't own them. They're not me. They're not little mini robots of me. Each one is their own person on their own journey. And I have to respect them for that. And it's fascinating that even babies have rights. If you think about in medical terms, or they have rights to privacy. So we have to really respect our children for who they are as their own individuals. And we look at raising them is how am I going to facilitate this process for them? How am I going to give them the tools that they need in order to be successful adults? And it's not so much about what they're doing today, but really about who they're going to become and how I can help them become the best adults that they can be. So maybe sweat the small stuff a little less and worry more about, or maybe not worry more, but help them build a beautiful future.
I love that you said they're not a mini me, and they're not an extension of me. So that when they do things that are not exactly the way I would have done it, it's not really an extension of me. And I think that's so important.
I think that's hard for us because we do judge ourselves a lot based on what our children are doing. And we think that we're being judged by others based on what they are doing. And I remember a time where I felt like I wasn't so proud to walk with one of my kids down the street. And that made me think really long and hard. How am I thinking about my children? How am I seeing them? It's not about me and it's not about the judgers. So that perspective really had to take a shift a little bit.
It's really about helping the kid be their best as the kid, and like you said, into their adulthood, especially because then they're really on their own. So what can we do?
Exactly. Well, the thing is that they're born with their own set of personality traits. They are born a certain way. Some of them we see from the moment they're born that this is going to be someone different than the rest of the gang. We see their personalities as babies. We see them as they develop. This is who they are. This is the package they're given. And it's not just like comply, do what I want. It's about helping them work with their own package. And you can see that with some of the younger children. Some of them are very, very anxious. And it's not that they don't want to do the right thing. They simply can't until we give them the tools. So it's really with each of our own children. Some children are not comfortable wearing a certain type of clothing. Some children are not comfortable accepting certain ideas. So it's about helping them navigate who they are and the toolbox they've been given, and help them grow that and help them develop more skills in order to work with who they are. We can't expect them or ask them to be someone who they just can never be, but we can expect them to push themselves harder and develop maturity and perspective to become the people that they really should grow.
So how do we instill values in the children?
So I think what's firstly important is to understand what are our values, what are our real core values. What do I actually believe? What am I really passionate about? And cut out all the fluff, meaning what we think we should believe, what we think we should be excited about if we're not. And I'm not saying that certain values we get more excited about, but I'm talking, and we're more passionate about. I'm not saying take away all the other things that we know are core beliefs, but we haven't worked up the passion yet. I'm saying in general, what's really, really important to me, and build a life that way. And when I build a life that way, when I sit down at the table and I talk to my husband about something I was teaching in Tanya, or something I learned about the Parsha, or something that I heard on the news, my kids will then see this is what's important to me. So we like to think that it's what we tell our children, and I do think it's important to talk about it, but it's much more about who we are and the life we want to lead. And our children will see so much from who we are, what we're passionate about, what we talk about, than from anything we say. Also, I do think it's important to have those conversations and to share our struggles with our children so they see what's really important to us. So it's not about putting up a show. It's not about telling them what's important, but I'm seeing what we're actually passionate about, and it will come up in conversation if we care about it. One of the most amazing things one of my children said to me is, Ma, I was talking to one of my friends and I was saying, I think it's interesting that I have watched my parents grow over the past few years. And it's kind of strange for me as a teenager to see that in my parents, but it makes me realize that I thought that by a certain age, I'm going to be finished. I'm going to be the final product. And now I see it's a lifelong experience of growth. So when my child sees that I'm struggling with something, I'm working at something, and this is what's really important to me, this is what really excites me, then that's how they know it's important, and maybe they will choose to value it. In addition, I think that it has to look like a really good product. So if I am stressed out, if I am miserable, if these are things that are causing me stress, then why on earth would they want it? Our children are looking to buy into things, and we have to kind of show them what's worthy of buying into. If this makes my mother miserable, why on earth would I want to do it? If this is what she's excited about, then this might be a better marketing for a product. So if we want our children to buy into our values, it has to be something that looks exciting, looks meaningful. And of course, if you want your kids to buy into your values, they have to value their connection with you for you to become somebody that you're worth shopping from. They're going to be shopping values from a lot of people, and they're going to be shopping from people that they think care about them, that they think are people that they respect. So if you develop a relationship, a deep, real relationship, then maybe they'll want to buy some of the products you're offering.
So you said a few things. I love that you said about sharing your struggle. Can you talk a little bit about how you did it, or how others can do that, to share what's really going on with them, but still keeping the kids feeling that the parents are in control?
So a friend shared with me recently is that she noticed that her daughter was struggling with something, and a friend told her, she's like, well, your kid thinks you're perfect. Your kid honestly thinks that you are perfect. And so they don't think you relate to them at all. So for me, it can be lots of different ways. I'm a thinker, and so therefore I'm going to struggle with lots of ideas, lots of concepts. And so it could be anything. I had a struggle with another person without sharing too much. I was sharing what it took from me in order to be strong in that the fact that I was working on a level of humility about really buying into, really thinking about being transparent to allow what has to happen come through me, allow Hashem to flow through me, and not my ego to get into the way. I sometimes share the struggle of, I know I should be learning more and I don't feel like I'm learning a lot. You don't have to overshare in order to share, and let them see, that if you're shopping in the store and you're having a hard time deciding if something is appropriate, if it's appropriate because does it make you look the type of lady you're looking to project, whatever it is, or if it's about sneeze. And so you can say, hey, I love that dress so much, and it looks so amazing on me, but I don't think it's projecting the image I want to project. I think there's a lot of ways we can do it without oversharing. Our kids don't need to hear all of our struggles. They don't want to, but they also want to know that we're human and that we can relate to them. And if we seem so perfect and they're not going to think that we can relate to them and understand what it is that they are dealing with.
So I like to use the term, make your thinking visible. Not all of it, like you said, but some things that are worth them actually seeing the process of going back and forth and seeing how, so that you become relatable, so that they can also learn from our whole thought processes.
Exactly. I think it's important to share, and also they get to see our values. I'll give you an example. One of our children really wanted something that we weren't sure was appropriate. So we called a Rev, and the Rev says, this is a question for your mashpia, your mentor. So fine. So I called my mentor, and she's like, I can't give you a straight out answer. Why don't you go right into the Rebbe when you go to the Rebbe's resting place? Why don't you write a letter and see, if anything comes to you? And honestly, nothing came to us. So we called another rabbi to ask for another perspective. And he's like, again, it's actually not black and white. I'm dealing with something similar in my own life, and I'm working through it. So now we're like, okay, no one gave us a black and white answer. What did we do? We sat together with the child and we said, here's the thing. You wanted this. We really want to make it a yes. However, we weren't sure it was appropriate. So this is what we did. We called one rabbi, spoke to a mentor, we wrote a letter to the rabbi, we spoke to another rabbi, and now we feel like we don't have a yes or no answer. And therefore, we're bringing this to you. We're telling you our process in this, and we think it appropriate for you to speak it over to someone else before you make your final decision. So we kind of showed our child the process of what we do when we're struggling with something, so that they know that this is an appropriate way to deal with a challenge or when you have a question. And in general, I think it's actually important, this is like a little bit of a side note, important to help them find people that they can connect to ask for advice. I mean, of course, I love when my kids come to me for advice, but a lot of times they're going to want someone outside of myself, and help them build a circle of trusted mentors, of people in their life that they can call when they do have an issue.
And also how to have those conversations, like what information to bring to set forth, how to present whatever it is. I think that's amazing that you're doing that with the kids while they're still young, and not like, I took care of it for you all these years, and now here you're an adult, go do it yourself, but I never showed you how. So I think it's amazing, and I think it's really important.
I actually began also thinking about this when I don't remember who was saying how once our kids become bar and bat mitzvah, like, it's their mitzvah, it's their responsibility. So it's not about me imposing on you. You have a question, look it up, call somebody, ask them, like, give them ownership over it. So it's not me imposing on you. This is your life. This is your choice. You're not doing this for me. You have to be doing this for yourself and your relationship with Hashem. So it's not about me carrying the burden for you anymore. It's about you making decisions. You decide what you think is right. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't sometimes tell them my expectations. I do have expectations, and I do have boundaries, and this is the way it works in our house, and this is what I'm willing to pay for or not willing to pay for. But pass on the ownership over to them, because it's their lives. It's not mine. And it's going to have to be their values, not my values. I'm not going to be living in their house every day.
So right. It has to be. So we have to help them develop their values. Hopefully they're similar to ours. So what are things that we can do to really help them? Like you said before, that they watch you, but is there anything else that you can do? Have the relationship with them, anything else?
I think I see this a little bit similar, like when I was teaching my kid how to drive a car, and I'm driving with her, and I'm thinking, yeah, I can tell her to slow down now. I can tell her to take a turn now. I can tell her lots of things. The thing is in a few months, she's going to be driving all by herself. And so is that going to help her make the decisions? So it's about not telling her what to do in the moment, but about giving her the information about making a decision. Hey, when it's rainy, you might want to slow down a little bit earlier because you might skid. Give her the information. You don't want to make too wide of a turn. You don't want to make too sharp of a turn. You want to give them the information so that they have what it needs to make the decisions themselves as they grow older. I also had the benefit that my kids left home pretty young. My kids all go away from home. In high school, we don't have strong Jewish high schools around us. And so we send them away. And it was like, yeah, I might tell her, pull down your skirt, but guess what? In 10 minutes, she's going to be somewhere else, and I'm not going to be there to tell her to pull down her skirt. So what can I offer her to make her think that her skirt should be at a length that I think is appropriate, that I think is modest, and not And what I mean is, it's not about what I think so much as how can I get her to see this? How can I get her? I am a big believer in studying straight from sources. I think that the more they see that it's not what my mother says or what my teacher says or what my school says, but this is what the Torah says, then they can learn them and study them and internalize them as they buy into it for their own.
And that's great. So they actually can read and know that they could be looking to sources and not only listening to what other people are telling them. So I think that's great. So how do you respond when the kids are not sharing your values or they don't seem to be sharing your values?
So I think it's firstly important to understand where our children are living. They are not living in a insular world, and that doesn't matter which community they're living in at this point. They're living in a very big, wide world where boundaries are seen very, very differently. There's lots of just the amount of knowledge that's pouring through, amount of thoughts, philosophies, ideas. There's so much access to information. There's like so many podcasts and so many shows and so many books. There's just like so much information coming at them. And the world is a super confusing place. Now, when I was raised, it was very much like you do the right thing, you don't do the wrong thing. I didn't really think about it. I mean, I thought about what I believed, but a lot of things weren't an option. And now the world is not such a disciplined place. It's not like there are very, very clear boundaries. And so when we were growing up, we had certain red lines that we would never cross. Those might have changed for our children. And they kind of see the world as this big open place where just because someone else tells me not to do it doesn't mean I'm not going to do it. And so it's very, very open, and it's much more confusing. And I think also because there's so much information coming at them, there are so many more ideas, so many more philosophies to choose from, and they're actually choosing. Like, I don't think that many of us did a lot of choosing. We kind of just accepted this was the way. It was comfortable. We might have struggled a little bit here, a little bit there, but basically accepted this is the way. I think our children don't see that. They see all the options open and are deciding who they want to be and how they're going to be that person. And so that's really, really tough. It's really confusing. And I think we have to recognize that, like when we're like, why can't you just? They can't just, because that's not the world they're living in. There's so much more there. It's more confusing. So I think step number one is to have a lot of empathy for them. Imagine having to make all these choices at such a young age that I don't remember making. I don't remember thinking about, who I'm going to be and what type of person. And it was just like, there's so much, they're asking themselves so many more questions. In addition, our world is so much more aware of emotions, which is a great thing because we have language to talk about it and understand it. But also it makes them think a lot more about their emotions. And I think when you think more about your emotions, you become a little bit more absorbed in them, which can also be hard. Like, I'm anxious. Do I have an anxiety disorder? Like they think so much more deeply about it, and that makes things more difficult. So I think the empathy is really important, where we're not judging them for their struggles. We have to recognize that this is the world that they're living in, and it is confusing. It really is. I think step number one in everything is having a strong relationship. When our children care about us, then maybe what we care about becomes much more important to them. But in general, they need us when they're confused, or when they're angry, when they're hurt, when they're upset, whatever it is that's going on, or when they're not sure what their values should be. That's painful. That's really painful. If we can recognize that, then we can be there to support them as they go through this painful thing. Now, I think it's important to recognize that we're not developing relationship as another way of trying to control at all. We're developing a relationship because that's what parents should be doing, because parents should be warm and loving people. And I think a lot of times we kind of think about this, that I'm going to do this so that they're going to do that. No, I'm not going to be a more warm and loving mother in order so that then my kids will do what I want. I'm going to be a warm, loving mother because my kid needs love and warmth, and because actually I happen to love them. So I want to share that love with them. Another thing that's, I think, very crucial is that we have to see the good in them. We have to see all the good that's in them. And someone pointed this out to me when I was going through a phase where I was really concerned about my children. And she's like, this phrase, "Trach gut wird sein gut," think good and it will be good, doesn't just apply to situations where someone's ill, things like that. It has to do with people as well. Think good about them. Like I say, like what you water will grow. Think good thoughts about your children, and it will build the goodness in them, but also they will see that you see good in them. They will see all the good that you see, and that will help them find it in themselves. So focus on the positivity in them and notice that, because often they're just struggling with this, but that doesn't mean that's not who they see. If they think, oh, my mother sees me as a shallow person, what's that going to do? Is that going to help them build up depth in themselves? Probably not. Like, oh, my mother sees me as shallow. Maybe I am shallow and I'll just stop there. Versus my mother thinks I'm a deep person. Maybe I can develop that depth even more. So the more good we see in them, the more it's going to build the good in them. Also, it gives them the energy that they need to work with whatever's going on inside of themselves.
And like you said, if you try to do it so that you get something, that's another way of saying manipulation.
Yeah, exactly.
And so really the kids, all of us, all humans have a lot of wonderful qualities. Sometimes we see the things that we don't like more than we see the things that we do like. And sometimes we have to delve a little bit further, but there, it really is there. We just have to change our mindset and look for it sometimes. I mean,
I think as parents, because we feel like our job is to help our children grow and to help fine tune things, we end up spending a lot of energy on where they need help and where they're not so good and on their faults. And we can kind of obsess about their faults. And I remember a teacher once giving me a compliment about my child. And I'm like, but she really needs to work on this. She's like, stop. I just said something nice. Accept it and see that in your child. Forget about what she needs to do. Accept that and see that. And I was kind of surprised because it wasn't like from this like mushy type of teacher. She was a very disciplinary type of teacher. And it was a very big lesson for me. Like, no, see the good that's right there. Appreciate it because it's something really, really special. Stop there. Don't focus on what needs to get done. It's not your job to get it done anyways. And if you focus on the good, it's good for you. It makes your parenting so much more enjoyable. Like, wow, my child is amazing. I think something else that is connected to this is help your children develop talents. So because, complimenting your kids is nice, but for them to be able to compliment themselves and take pride in themselves is huge. And if you can find things that develop their talents and helps them really build on them, it really helps them see themselves in that light. Like, I'm lucky because I run a Chabad house and there's so many opportunities for my kids to give, where one of them loves to bake, another one wants to set up parties, another one taught in my Hebrew school class when she was 12 years old. So there's so many different areas for them to shine. But I think we have to help them find those areas to shine, because that's, it's like there's levels of giving tzedakah, and the lowest level, might be giving with an unhappy expression. The highest level is giving someone a job, because then they're not dependent on anyone else. I think it's the same thing with building up our children's beliefs in themselves, is not complimenting them, but allow them to see the good in themselves, where it'll be this pride in themselves that will be a natural extension of what they do, not something that someone else has to tell them or feed them.
So it's complimenting them, but also like in a way showing what they did contributed to the family, to the work, to like, I think helps them see how they are so valuable to the world, not just nice job, but really get into that was so helpful, because when you did that, I was able to rest for 20 minutes or whatever it is. Like, they really feel that they contributed.
So that, but even more is help them find things that they can build on to be a leader in their own right, to lead something. So, and I mean, I see that my kids sometimes do it on their own, but sometimes you have to set them up and say, hey, can you please be in charge of this project? I know you're really good at this. Sometimes you're building on something that's like a weakness, like, you're so good at being fair with everybody. Can you please give out the snacks? That's the little kid, to help them be more fair and develop this level of generosity. And it could be in bigger projects as well, where you ask them to take leadership over something. Can you organize this? I'm too busy, or I think this is something you're really good at. And then they can take charge and see how they really can shine.
So let's talk a little bit about the relationship styles with the different teens. And can we talk too about mother and sons versus mothers and daughters?
So I happen to have only one teenage son. I was blessed with many daughters, and I have one 15-year-old son, and then my other boys are 7 and down. So I could try. I actually had a bunch of yeshiva students here for Shabbos from New Haven. I'm like, guys, tell me, I don't know so much about boys. I didn't get a lot from them. So, but developing a relationship with our children, I think our children have to see us as a really good friend, someone that they know they can come to, someone that won't judge them, someone that will hear them, someone that has their best interests at heart, someone that enjoys them. they have to see us in that way. Not that we're their friend, meaning we don't share with them the things that we still have to be the parent in the relationship, but they have to know that we really think highly of them. We really enjoy their company, and we want them to want our advice. I think it's the most amazing thing when a child calls and says, hey, can you give me some advice? Because we want them to want to spend time with us, to want to see us. They have to know that we can see their struggles and we can relate to it without judgment. So I think building a relationship that's enjoyable, that it's not just like, the lecturing, but they can feel that they can spend time with us and enjoy our company, and we can enjoy them as well. I think this concept of friend, like we always had it in our minds, like you're not your kid's friend, and that's true. But on the other hand, they can look to you. Well, they're not your friend is what I'm saying, really. And so you are not going to share things with them. You're not going to come to them, but you can be their friend, someone that they can trust, someone they know has their best interest at heart, and someone that enjoys them. And I think that it's much more likely that they'll come to you for that.
Just to have just the family atmosphere in general of laughing, happy, rather than just always making sure that they are perfect or they are doing what they must do.
It has to be fun to be home. Otherwise, they're going to want to be other places. And so if you have a fun, happy home, I think that you really go a long way. I think part of it is that we take things very seriously and we make a big deal of things. But if we can just build this feeling of play more into our lives, we're like, okay, no big deal. And just be more enjoyable. Let life be more enjoyable. It's not the biggest deal. And not sweat the small stuff. I think that our kids will enjoy our company more, and then will value our lifestyle more as well.
So for you, do you have any mindset shifts that you went through from your older kids to your younger kids that you went through as you're raising your kids?
So I think I really started off with the control mindset. I'm going to control what they do, and then that will make sure that they turn out the way I need them to be. It's about what they do. And I realized later, it's really not about what they do right now. It's about what they're going to do as adults. And so it's about helping them buy into the values that I think are important. There's of course the Yiddishkeit values of loving Torah mitzvahs and wanting to live really full life, that these are their values, but also just in general, being organized, being clean. Like, it's not just about brushing their teeth today, but hopefully that they'll brush their teeth and floss every day as they get older. So it's the little things, the big things, being a mensch, being kind, being, just being thoughtful, all of these things. It's not about so much what they do right now, but how they're going to get there. And the question is, how are they going to get there as an adult? How am I going to help direct them? Or how am I going to help create a world for them where they see these things as important? So it's not about control, which is what I spent a lot of my time doing in the beginning, to changing that to influence. And like I said earlier, it's like when you take them driving, and yes, I can tell them what to do in every step of the way. Firstly, they can choose to turn the wheel because they're in the driver's seat, not me. So they can choose to do whatever they want. That's number one. But also, I'm not always going to be there whispering in their ear what to do next. And so it's really about them deciding what's valuable to them and how they're gonna make this their own. And so I think back to the control thing, even as parents, when we realize, okay, they're no longer a child, I can't control them, we move into a more subtle form of control. So let's just say everyone's like, it's all about relationship. So I build up the relationship, but if in my mind is, okay, I'm going to build up the relationship so that then my child will do A, B, and C, that's another level of control. That's manipulation. So it has to really change, is that my job as a parent to do my best job as a parent possible. And that's all I can do. I'm going to do my job because that's my stuff. That's what I have to do. That's the job that I have to own. So I'm going to do everything I believe a parent should do. I'm going to shower them with love. I'm going to do the discipline as well. I'm going to create a warm environment where it's fun and exciting. But it's not about because then they're going to do A, B, and C. It's about because this is what I need to do. This is my job in life, and this is how I'm going to do it. And however they choose to make their decisions afterwards is not because of what I did. So of course I want a level of influence, and I want to I want to find my way as an influencer in their life. Think about even on social media, why are people following certain influencers and are not following other influencers? There's something that's really attractive to us about that influencer, whether it's the way they talk, or it's the way they connect with us and we feel like they really understand our way. Whether it's because whatever they're offering is beautiful and exciting and fun. If you think about it, like, I want to be an influencer. What is going to make you an influencer in their life? The thing is that then we can kind of say, okay, this is what's going to be exciting to them. But then I have to go back and say, but I have to be influencing about what's me, what's important to me, what's valuable to me, what I think it's all about. And if you see those influencers, each one is passionate about what they're teaching. This is about what they're sharing with the world. You don't see a food blogger who doesn't like to eat. And you don't see a fashion influencer who is not really into her clothes and love the color, love the texture, love all of that. And so it's the same thing. If I want to be an influencer, I have to be passionate about what it is. I have to own what it is, and then hopefully they're going to follow me.
And influencers also show up a lot. They're really part of our lives. And I think this not coming in like once a week with a call for kids out of town and just calling once a week with a 5-minute good Shabbos. And they don't have that, really don't build that relationship.
So I think that children need to know, like, as babies, we carry them in utero, and then we carry them for a bunch more months when they're born. And as they go out into the world, children need to know that we're carrying them in our heart, that they're always with us, that we're always thinking about them. And we need to show them in the big and little ways that they're on our minds, whether it's a quick call, quick text, a present, all these little things that they need to know we care about them and we're thinking about them and we're not just crossing things off their list. I think that it's normal for kids to know that we feel a responsibility towards them, and we do a lot of things out of responsibility towards them. The doctor's appointments, the dentist appointments, checking all those things off their list. But they also want to feel that the love and the excitement that we have for them and how we're really carrying them in our heart, not out of duty, but out of a deep sense of connection. And I think this deep sense of connection, they can feel when it's there, they can feel when it's not there. And we're just like getting them off our, getting off our list for the day, or finishing the call as fast as possible because we want to move on to other things. So they're going to feel that connection, and it's going to come through in a lot of ways. It will come through in our empathy. It will come through in our conversations. They're going to feel how we care about them, which will definitely make us a better influencer as well. But it's just, I think, the number one thing for a child to feel is connection. They need to feel that we're deeply, deeply connected with them. And that gives them this safety and security then to go about the world, to make their decisions, to kind of interface with everything, and then come back and know that there's like this solid foundation underneath it all. And there's a strong connection that gives them that safety. It's kind of like when you're going rock climbing and they always tie this, they tie the rope around you. And so you're climbing, but if you fall, you're safe. You're much more likely then to take some risks, healthy risks. So I think if our kids feel safe and connected, they're willing to be more open-minded. They're willing to explore new ideas, but from a place of safety and a place of connection, where the world is not a scary place. It's a safe place for them because they know that they're always connected.
Okay, so if someone was a more controlling parent, and now they're all inspired by what we spoke about today, do you have any tips of how they could release some of that control, or should they go all out and release all that control?
So I think that people get scared because they think that letting go of control means letting go of boundaries, letting go of expectations, letting go of rules. I'm a big not disciplinarian. I believe in discipline. I believe in boundaries. I believe in rules. And my kids know very clearly what is acceptable and what is not acceptable. So it's not about that. I think that's number one, that it's not like you're letting go of your values, you're letting go of your beliefs, or you're letting go of your rules. Yes, I have expectations. I don't want you walking around in my house a certain way, and there's certain music that I don't want you to play, and there's certain things I expect you to do, and I want you back at home or in the dorm at a certain time of night. And yes, we have very high expectations, and I will let you know if you let me down in that way. So it's not about letting go of values, of rules, or anything like that. I think that it's super important for children to have the rules, have the boundaries, and that also gives them a feeling of safety. So it's not about that. That's number one. Number two is, I think we have to first notice what am I trying to do? Like when I do that, and is it actually helping me? Is this trying to be controlling going to make the difference? Is it going to change who they are in the long run or not? And we really do have to have more long-term thinking versus short-term thinking. Because yes, in this moment, I would prefer that my child, let's just say, picks up a sitter and, davens shachris. I would appreciate that. I would like that. But is my telling her to daven chakras now, and firstly, whether she will or won't, she might move her lips. Will she be actually engaged in a process of connection with Hashem in that moment? So will anything even happen in that moment? But long term, will that inspire her to be somebody who davens? So me controlling in that moment, is that affecting something long term? Oftentimes it's going to affect something negative in the long term, but even if not something negative, will it actually affect something positive? So if you really want, and I'm not saying this, you can see this as a little bit manipulative, but it can actually just be a way of expressing what's important to you. If you think that something's important, then do it, live it. Make sure that they see you doing it. And it can't be like this show where you're like, okay, I'm going to daven now, everybody. I'm going to daven. Daven's a good thing. It's important to me. But be like, if it's something important to you, then do it. And let them see that you do it. Or sometimes, there are ways of suggesting like, hey, what do you think about? And I thought it would be nice if there's just less controlling ways of expressing things. And actually, when I asked the yeshiva baruch, I'm like, do you have any ideas of like what I should say? One of them's like, ask them, don't tell them. Like, ask them if they could help you with something. I think what he meant is like, I don't want to be told what to do anymore, but I don't mind if you want to share with me a thought, if you want to encourage me. So I think, yes, our kids do need encouragement. They do need to be pushed. They do need to be stretched. Sometimes we're not sure. Sometimes, we could push a kid too hard and they feel like, you're pushing me too hard. That's fine. It's okay. I think we shouldn't be afraid to mess up, to make mistakes. We're not going to ruin our kids in one decision. And in general, if you let go of fear, you're going to be a happier mother. And I think that's a lot of where control is coming from. We're afraid. We're afraid that they're going to choose a life that we don't want. We're afraid they're going to make mistakes that they will regret and that will cause them a lot of pain or cause us all pain. But if we let go of the fear, we're going to parent from a much, much better place, a much happier place, a much more, they're going to feel the love that we have for them and the joy that we have in them, because when you're afraid, all of that gets held back. So let go of that. And yes, I think suggestions are great. Encouragement is great. Inspiration is great. But really above all is about who we are and how we lead their lives and what we talk about, what we're passionate about. They're going to see that. They're going to see what brings us joy. And if they see that, well, actually I have to take that back a little bit, because like for me, I still struggle with trying to daven, and I daven almost every day, but do I always enjoy it? Do I always focus on it? Or do I also get busy with my hands starting to fold the laundry or start putting things away as I'm davening? So I can say like, hey, it's hard for me. Like, I really think that davening is so important, but it's something that I still struggle with to really focus on the words. Or sometimes I'll say, like, I just learned this piece in Tanya about this word of davening, and now I'm coming to that to feel it with so much more joy and passion. So it's about sharing that this was hard for me. This is still hard for me, but also I've grown in this way in this part of my life. So I think it all kind of comes together that we think that if we control their actions, we're going to get somewhere. We're going to get them to do something, and therefore that's going to be really good. But not always getting them to do something is what we need. It's really getting to be someone. So it's not about focusing so much on who they are right now or what they're doing right now, but what they're going to do as an adult, what they're going to believe in, what type of person they're going to become.
I think the challenge is that we weren't parented that way, and we didn't have those experiences as teens. We didn't have all these questions, all these options. So we don't have anything to fall back on. So I think that the idea that we have to navigate and make our own path as parents can be very overwhelming for people.
I think it is. And I think if we think that's overwhelming, imagine how our kids feel in a world that's bombarded with so many ideas, and they have to navigate even younger. So to have the empathy for our children. So I say, you know what? I think that we have to recognize that we have to be thoughtful parents. We're not going to be perfect, but we're going to be thoughtful. And as long as we have taken the time to think about it, ask advice, make a decision, we can let go of fear. There's no perfect way, but we'll be okay. So to let go of like the negative emotions around the parenting, that's what really leads us to do the next things, to do the controlling, to do the lecturing. And I don't know if you remember the lectures you were given as a kid. I don't remember any of them, but I do remember how I felt in them. And I remember literally my head being like, blah, 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 blah. So obviously it's not going to work. So why are we going to try the same things that didn't work for us? So instead, let's stop, notice our child, think about what they need. And it's not like it's like black and white. Like we're always going to do this for every child. We're always going to do that for every child. Look at that child in that moment and think, okay, what's important here? What's the value here? How are we going to make this decision? And it can be a very slow process. And yes, we weren't necessarily parented that way, but our parents didn't parent either the way that their parents parented, probably. So we're going to bring this one, each one of us have more awareness about how emotions work, more awareness. We're a little bit more, I think, a little bit less removed from our children's world, many of us. So we can use that knowledge to help us make the decisions together and let go of the reins a little bit, which means not letting go of discipline, not letting go of rules, not letting go of our authority, but work together. Like, I see this is going on. Let's talk about it together. Let's brainstorm. Let's use some of the modern parenting tools to help us, but to help us within our value system.
This has been great. One final question, if we dare. If our husband is not on the same page, can we go there?
That is a really hard question. I think the biggest gift we can give our kids is a warm, connected family where we do share values. We can't always be on the same page. We're never going to be all on the same page. I actually just heard that all couples, regardless of how happily married they are, 70% of the disagreements will always stand and they will never resolve them. So we can disagree on things. We can still work together to come up with something that will work at that moment. I think also, even if we can't work out specific decisions, our child feeling our love and acceptance of them and who they are will help us all handle things, even if we can't work out perfect decisions, perfect situations.
Like you said, no one is perfect, not your ideas, not his ideas, not the kids' ideas, but make it a happier home so the kids want to come home. The kids want to reach out to you.
I did listen to a great workshop by it was, I think, Moshe Lamb about disagreements and how to resolve disagreements and how to go into a disagreement and what your perspective should be and what your perspective should be coming out. And I thought it was amazing. And that's probably a great thing for people to listen to. I think I got it on Torah Cafe, or I'm sorry, no, on
it's Razel's, I think.
I heard it on Razel's positive podcast, but I also heard it on it was yeshiva.net. It was excellent. So if it's good for all of us, because I don't know any couple that does not disagree. And it was an amazing way of using your disagreements to actually bring you closer.
I love that. So I think that's a very good way to, and then the kids can actually watch how that happens for their own relationships. So depending where you do it, actually, but the idea that even parents don't always agree, and so how to navigate disagreements, but that's for a whole different conversation about parents. So thank you so much, Yehudis. If you want people to reach out to you.
It was my pleasure. This was wonderful. People are welcome to reach out to me. You can email me, YehudisCT, as in Connecticut, YehudisCT@gmail.com. I'd be happy to hear from you. And I want to wish us all that we should have only nachas and joy from our children. We should really feel the joy of connection with them. And we should see good things from all of them. Let them grow into the adults that we're looking to see them grow into.
The world, yeah. Thank you so much, Yehudis.
My pleasure.
Thank you for joining me in another fascinating conversation about midlife. If you'd like to reach me, Devora Krasnianski, to talk about your midlife or anything else, you can reach me at jewishmidlife@gmail.com and follow us at Jewish Midlife on Instagram and Facebook, and join us in our conversations in our Facebook group at facebook.com/group/Jewish Women Talk About Midlife.